Hey everybody, this is Mike. So what we're going to talk about today is what if Sherlock Holmes were a psychologist? What type of therapy would he practice, and how would he do it? So let's start. Well, we all know Sherlock Holmes. If Sherlock Holmes were a psychologist, he would most likely practice a highly specialized and perhaps even unique form of cognitive behavioral therapy. By the way, this information is supported in part by Gemini AI. So CBT, heavily infused with elements of logic-based therapy, or LBT, and a forensic-like approach to identifying and correcting distorted thinking. So here's why. Emphasis on observation and deduction. Holmes' primary method is meticulous observation, followed by a rigorous process of logical deduction to arrive at a conclusion. CBT and LBT, logic-based therapy, both heavily rely on identifying patterns in thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and Holmes would excel at observing a client's verbal and nonverbal cues, noting discrepancies, and then using his deductive reasoning to pinpoint core beliefs and maladaptive thought patterns. He would approach a client's case with the same analytical rigor he applies to a criminal investigation. Another example, it would be focusing on present problems and rationality. And while Holmes acknowledges past events, his primary focus is on the present problem and its immediate solution. CBT is very much a present-oriented and problem-focused approach, aiming to identify and change current dysfunctional thoughts and behaviors. LBT, logic-based therapy, is a more philosophical variant of REBT, rational emotive behavior therapy, which directly addresses irrational beliefs and illogical conclusions drawn from experiences. This aligns perfectly with Holmes' disdain for emotional reasoning and his preference for cold, hard facts and logic. Another area is challenging irrationality, also known as cognitive restructuring. A core tenet of CBT is cognitive restructuring, where clients learn to identify and challenge their distorted thoughts. Holmes, with his keen ability to spot fallacies and inconsistencies, would be an expert at this. He wouldn't simply agree with a client's self-defeating narratives. He'd systematically dismantle them by pointing out logical flaws, demanding evidence, and presenting alternative, more rational interpretations of events. He might even use a Socratic method style of questioning, similar to guided discovery in CBT, to lead clients to their own logical conclusions. Behavioral experiments and problem solving. Holmes is a man of action and experimentation. He doesn't just theorize. He tests his hypotheses. In a therapeutic context, this could translate into him devising behavioral experiments for his clients to test their own maladaptive beliefs in real-world situations, much like a CBT therapist. He'd encourage them to gather data and observe the outcomes, using this evidence to challenge their assumptions. Detachment, to a degree, and objectivity. While Holmes isn't devoid of empathy, his professional demeanor is often characterized by a certain detachment and objectivity. This would allow him to remain impartial and focus on the facts of a client's psychological case without getting entangled in their emotional distress, much like a highly effective, though perhaps unconventional, CBT therapist. He would likely emphasize that emotions are often a result of irrational thoughts rather than an independent force to be merely felt. And finally, the science of deduction. Holmes views his work as a science. He gathers data, forms hypotheses, and tests them. This scientific approach maps directly onto the empirical and evidence-based nature of CBT. He'd be less interested in exploring deep unconscious motivations, such as in psychodynamic therapy, and more concerned with observable behaviors and the explicit thought processes driving them. So, in essence, Sherlock Holmes as a psychologist would be a master of psychological deduction. He would help clients meticulously analyze their own internal crime scenes, their thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors to uncover the irrational culprits that lead to their distress. He would be a therapist who empowers clients to become their own astute investigators using logic and evidence to solve their personal mysteries. So I hope this was helpful. And what do you think about Sherlock Holmes as a therapist? And would you want him as your therapist? Let me know in the comments, and I will speak to you soon.